All right, you're watching Live Now. I'm Austin Westfall. Let's discuss the latest on the investigation into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. The FBI posting this today, saying this morning numerous FBI agents are conducting an extensive search along multiple roadways in the Catalina foothills area relating to the Guthrie investigation. They're asking media and motorists to follow traffic laws, remain cautious when passing law enforcement personnel near the roadways. We also know that detectives have discovered a black glove today. That's something that I believe, got video of from the New York Post. They had this. I'll play this for you. Takes a moment before you can really tell what we're working with here, but they found a black glove on the roadside about 1.5 miles away from the home. Those are detectives collecting the glove itself. Oh, it looks like you can't really see it very well, but that's them collecting it and then inserting it into their database. We will be checking in and we will be letting you know of any and all updates that we see relating to the investigation. Here's some footage of authorities with the FBI combing through some of the neighborhoods and surrounding roads earlier. You know, we've been hearing also reports from TMZ. TMZ says they received another note relating to Guthrie, but they say it doesn't seem to be from the kidnapper. Instead, they say it's from someone offering to give up information on the kidnapper. Also, we're hearing that a man was briefly detained overnight in connection to the 84-year-old's disappearance. We played the interview with that person. Matt Finn of Fox News had a quick little back and forth with him earlier today. That man has since been released after he was being questioned late last night. Let's bring in David Katz. He's here. He's the CEO of Global Security Group. We always love to bring David on when we have law enforcement related questions. Let's start off with the glove today, David. What are they going to do now that they're bringing this into their chain of custody? And really, what kind of procedures do they do on a glove in order to make sure that they're making the most of potential evidence?
Well, they're certainly going to look for DNA traces on the glove. They'll note the size of the glove. Maybe they could find out where it was purchased. But, that's still a big leap because it is just a glove found off a roadway. There's nothing to connect it at this point to the crime. I mean, it's certainly conceivable that if the abductor had a pair of gloves, they might have thrown it out the window on the way by. But I mean, it's still a very tenuous link until they can prove otherwise.
What do you make also of this third letter that TMZ was sent today? They announced today that they received it, at least. The person sent the letter, this person appears to claim that they know who the suspect is. We don't know if this is legit or not. How much law enforcement manpower gets tied up in chasing false leads?
Yeah, I mean, considerable amount. I mean, you have to do kind of a triage as far as what you're going to devote manpower to. Something like this, I assure you, they're going to at least run down. I mean, if I had a guess, I think it's a very, very unlikely event that the person who is reaching out in that manner has information. I mean, there is a reward already posted. Why not just pick up the phone? Why not walk into the police station? So, I mean, it seems to me unlikely, but they will track it down. And to your point, they definitely are spending a lot of man hours on. Apparently 15,000 phone calls came in. That's, I saw someone driving this type of car in the area at this hour. Okay, that's got to be run down. I saw this person walking in the area a couple days before. It seems suspicious to me. That person's got to be in. Multiply that by 15,000.
How much time do they take on each little tip?
A lot of them will just be discounted immediately. I mean, I saw an alien spacecraft hovering over the residence. I mean, okay, I think that one can just scratch off the list. But they'll look at them and they'll make a determination. Well, that sounds promising, especially if it dovetails with other information that they may have. Remember, they're not telling everything they have to the media. They're keeping a lot of it, in house, and of course they would. But if a tip comes in and they say, "Well, I saw a person with this kind of attire, or wearing this type of shoes," and they look at that and say, "Well, we kind of expect our person of interest to be dressed in that manner." That'll get a little extra attention, of course.
So this is happening in southern Arizona, not far from major highways, not far from border routes. What role do transportation corridors play in how investigators search and canvass?
Well, it goes two ways. I mean, obviously, if you're close to major transportation routes, you could be anywhere very, very quickly. I mean, as you mentioned, you're also close to the border, and a person who is committing any sort of crime has opportunities to travel in multiple directions from that point. On the other hand, you may be able to, if there are traffic checkpoints, if there are tolls, if there are a lot of police cars are license plate readers, so you can also get a lot of information from uh, uh, assets that are deployed near those major roadways. So it can go both ways. But I mean, I think probably if I had to guess how they're handling this, they're probably looking at it more of an electronic footprint rather than just physical, like, major routes of travel or canvassing the hills. And by that I mean, if a person is in the area and they have a cell phone and that person hasn't been there before or has been there at, or if they get a cell phone presence at an unusual time and place, um, that's interesting. If they access the internet, there'll be a record of that. I mean, people don't understand that you have a walking friend with you every time you're anywhere with a cell phone. So they're going to be looking at that. And if I had to guess, that's going to be one of the major things that they're running down. I mean, there's a great case. I don't know if you remember a couple of years back, there was a very highly sophisticated international burglary ring. There were Chilean illegal aliens in this country, and they were knocking off major estates and high value targets, and that's how they caught them. So I'm guessing they're using the same type of approach in this case.
You know, we've been sitting here kind of waiting for a press conference to be called. Best I can tell, I don't think there's been one since last week. Why might we not be getting regular press briefings from officials, from the FBI, from local authorities?
A couple reasons: either they don't have anything to say, or they want to keep some information private, or a combination of both. I mean, uh, the fact that they grabbed somebody that they described as a person of interest, held them, questioned them, then released them, that suggests that they're not really close to nailing this thing down. And why would you have a conversation? Why would you hold a press conference and say, "Well, thank you for coming. We really don't have anything." So, I mean, that it could be as simple as that.
Yeah, some video, and it looks like the video might be frozen, but this was the scene yesterday as they were bringing somebody in for questioning. It ended up turning out that they would release this person shortly after they brought him in for questioning. David, we've heard about a flood of public tips coming in. How are investigators triaging thousands of leads without missing the one that matters?
That's really tough because you, you can go back in major cases and find out that, oh, we missed the tip that came in because at the time it didn't seem very important. So what I would suspect is they're going to look at the tips. So, like I said, some are going to be patently ridiculous and not followed up at all. But then some will have some probative value, and they'll say, okay, well, okay, they'll point to one of the investigators and they'll say, these 10 are yours. Try to talk to these people. And then if you make a phone call, for example, and that person has information that seems kind of important or possibly further the investigation, then you go down and physically meet that person. But they're probably just doing a lot of work on the phone, a lot of work sending out messages, text messages, things like that, to try to go through those. And like I said, you get a sense of, based on what the information is, that okay, this possibly uh, would be helpful. Or right off the bat, you say, no, this can't be involved because the information is so like off the wall. So what percentage is irrelevant? I would say, unfortunately, the overwhelming number of tips will have nothing to do with the case. And the
Yeah.
matter and the issue is find that one out of 1,000 that does, and that's going to take a little time and effort. Just that's just man hours. That's all that is.
This is the first time I've had a chance to talk to you since we saw these images. I'm curious, David, what was your initial reaction to seeing the photos of this person on Nancy's porch?
That's interesting because they initially reported that the camera was disabled, so that suggests some knowledge of the location and of some technical awareness. But now that they have this, that's huge because first of all, you now have take the person's stature. You can compare the way that person standing next to points of reference. Now they know how tall he is. Now they know roughly how heavy he is. They know the size of his feet. They have footprints. They have imprints now. They're going to look at the clothing and say, okay, what is that something that was picked up in local Walmart and that would be ubiquitous, or is that something a little more unique that we could track down? Look at those gloves. By the way, they have a picture of those gloves, and if that picture is consistent with the glove they picked up at the side of the roadway, that's kind of interesting. But if you look at this, like you see the person's eyes, you see the person's mouth, you got the shape of the head, and there is such sophisticated technology that it's not just facial recognition. It's the way a person walks, the way a person holds their body, the shape of their head. There's proportion. The height difference between some people have longer legs, shorter legs, more torso, less torso. So they're looking at all these things, and I think that's a big step forward, getting those images.
So speaking of the gloves, let's say that they have this glove that they found on the side of the road today. They bring this in, process it for evidence. They search for DNA on it. Let's say they find DNA on the glove. Does this person in this video need to be in their database already? What if this person's never been arrested before and they've never been processed before for any reason? Would that mean that there would be no way of making a connection between the glove that was found and who was wearing it?
No, you would still get information. First of all, it'd be great information to have post arrest, as far as securing a conviction. But you get a lot of information about the person from their DNA, and who knows? Maybe maybe their cousin went on the ancestry, or 123, they know 123 and me and all the other ubiquitous DNA research, the commercial centers. And if that's the case, well, now you're a huge step forward, because now you know that, all right, whoever this DNA belongs to, it's a first cousin of so and so, who is just a commercial client of a DNA company, and that happens all the time. You get the hits like that. So hopefully it is the glove. Hopefully they do get something on it. And by the way, the fact that the glove is found proximate to a roadway, well, now that's going to bring another area of investigation. Maybe they were looking at that roadway before, but now if that is in fact the glove, they're going to be looking at that whole area very, very intently, and whatever routes that are adjacent. Well, maybe something else was thrown out. Maybe someone was hiking or walking their dog and they saw something unusual in that area around that time. So it just opens up another avenue of investigation to follow.
How are federal agencies and the local agencies dividing their responsibilities on this case right now? We've heard of thousands of tips coming in, and then you also think about pieces of evidence like a black glove being found. Who processes the glove? Who is responsible for processing the thousands of tips? How is that divided up between federal agencies and the local guys?
That's a fantastic question, and I'm sure a lot of people watching have that same question. So usually what you do is you break up tasks based on the ability your agency has to perform a certain investigative measure. The analysis, for example, DNA, that's going to the FBI, period. If you found an explosive device, that's going to the ATF. Narcotics, that's going to DEA. The local police, they know the terrain, they know the people, they know the area completely. So, and they seem to have limited manpower. So you're going to get a task force put together with local police officers, local sheriffs, state police, and then every federal agency that's brought into this case. And as far as the knocking on door stuff, that would just be probably doled out based on whoever's available. There's really no reason that a sheriff's deputy or police officer, an FBI agent be preferred knock on someone's door and say, hey, do you have any camera footage? Did you see anything? That's just basic canvassing. That'd be done just based on manpower and availability. But the special talents, like the forensic analysis, that'll go to the agency that's best suited to do it.
David Katz, good to check in with you. David's the CEO of Global Security Group. We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
You bet.